During dinner, my sister said she was pregnant and that the father was my husband. But then I revealed a secret that shattered everything. That moment hangs in my memory like a storm cloud over the Mississippi River. The air in our cozy dining room felt thick, heavy with the scent of fried catfish and collard greens I'd spent all afternoon preparing. My hands, worn from years of nursing shifts, still trembled as I set down my fork. The words echoed in my ears, each one a sharp sting to the heart I'd given so freely. I am Eulalia Thorne, 49 years old, a woman who's seen enough life to know pain doesn't always announce itself. But that evening, in our modest home in Memphis, Tennessee, pain walked right in and sat at my table. Thank you for being here with me today, dear ones. Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe if these stories touch your soul. And I'd love to know what city you're listening from, so share it in the comments. Now sit back, let the words wrap around you, and allow me to carry you through this tale. Life before that dinner was steady, like the slow rhythm of the riverboats I watched from my porch on quiet evenings. I'd built it brick by brick, starting young in a family that knew hardship. My parents, hardworking folks from the Delta, taught me early that nothing comes without sweat. I was the eldest, always the one to step up. By 18, I was working 2 jobs to help with bills, dreaming of a better path. Nursing called to me like a quiet whisper. I put myself through school at the University of Memphis, nights blurred with textbooks and coffee, days filled with clinicals. That's where I met Harlan, my husband. He was a patient back then, recovering from a factory accident, his smile cutting through the sterile hospital air like sunlight. We married young, at 22, in a simple ceremony at our Baptist church. No fancy hall, just love and promises under God's eye. Harlan worked as a mechanic, fixing trucks at a local garage. He wasn't ambitious like some, but he was kind, steady. We'd laugh over sweet tea on the porch, plan for a future that felt secure. No children came. Doctors said it wasn't meant to be, but we had each other, and that was enough. I rose in my career, becoming a head nurse at St. Jude's, pulling long shifts but always coming home to him. My sister, Zephyrine, we called her Zeph, was 9 years younger, the baby of the family. She grew up in my shadow, always a bit wild, chasing dreams that shifted like wind. Our parents doted on her, maybe too much after I left home. Zeph flitted through jobs, waitressing, retail, even tried cosmetology school but dropped out. She leaned on me often, calling for just a little help with rent or bills. I'd send it every time because that's what sisters do. Family ties run deep in our blood. Harlan and Zeph got along fine, or so I thought. She'd visit for holidays, her laughter filling the house like music. We'd cook together, me teaching her mama's recipes, Harlan sneaking tastes and making us giggle. Those were warm times, scented with cinnamon and love. I remember one Christmas, Zeph stayed a week. Harlan fixed her old Chevy in the driveway, grease on his hands, while we baked pies inside. "You're lucky, Eulalia," she'd say, eyes soft. "Harlan's one of the good ones." Our home was modest, a 2-bedroom ranch on a quiet street, bought with my savings after years of overtime. Harlan contributed what he could, but my salary carried us. We had a joint account for bills, but I kept separate savings, a habit from lean years. Life flowed gentle. Church on Sundays, barbecues with neighbors, quiet nights with Harlan's arm around me, watching the stars. But peace, I've learned, can hide cracks. Subtle ones, like hairline fractures in bone. The first clue came soft, almost unnoticed. It was a humid Tuesday in late spring, about 6 months before that fateful dinner. I came home early from my shift, feet aching, craving a cool bath. Harlan's truck was in the drive, but the house felt empty. I called his name, no answer. Then, from the backyard, I heard voices, low, murmuring. Peeking through the kitchen window, I saw them, Harlan and Zeph, sitting close on the old swing set, her head on his shoulder, his hand patting her back. "It'll be all right," he said, voice tender. Zeph wiped her eyes, nodding. I stepped back, heart skipping. She lived an hour away in Jackson, Mississippi. Why was she here midweek? When they came inside, Zeph jumped, then hugged me tight. "Sis, you're home early. I needed to talk to Harlan about something." Her eyes darted, makeup smudged. Harlan cleared his throat. She had car trouble on the way through town. I fixed it up. I nodded, pushing down the unease. Well, stay for supper then. We ate fried chicken and okra, conversation light, but I noticed things. The way Zeph's gaze lingered on Harlan, how he avoided my eyes. That night in bed, I asked him, what was she really crying about? He sighed. Money troubles again. Didn't want to burden you. I let it go, but sleep came hard. Clues piled slow after that. Zeph called more often, but always when I was at work. Harlan's phone buzzed late nights. He'd say it was the garage. Once, I found a receipt in his pocket. Coffee for 2 at a diner halfway to Jackson. Met a buddy, he mumbled. I wanted to believe him. Love does that, blinds you to the shadows. Then came the whispers at church. Sister Gladys pulled me aside after service. Saw your Harlan and that sister of yours at the park last week. Looked mighty close. My stomach twisted. I confronted Harlan that evening. What's going on? He denied it, eyes wide. Nothing, Eulalia. You know Zeph. She's family. I tried to ignore the doubt gnawing inside, like termites in wood. But tension grew, silent and heavy. One evening, Harlan came home late, smelling of perfume. Not mine. Overtime, he said. I nodded, but my heart ached. Suspicion settled in, a quiet storm building. The storm finally broke on a sticky Sunday in August. I had invited Zephyrine to dinner, the way I always did when she hinted she was going through it. I told myself it was just family, just love. I fried catfish, made cornbread from scratch, simmered greens with smoked turkey the way Mama taught me. The table was set pretty, my good dishes, the ones with the little blue flowers. Harlan helped carry platters, but his hands shook a little. I noticed, but I still didn't want to see. We sat down, candles flickering, ceiling fan humming lazy circles. Zeph wore a new dress, bright yellow, hugging her body in a way that made me blink twice. She had gained a softness around the middle, but I thought it was just her finally eating regular. She waited until we all had full plates. Then she set her fork down, folded her hands over her belly, and looked straight at me. Eulalia, I'm pregnant. I smiled, reached for her hand. Baby, that's wonderful. Who's the daddy? Some man finally treat you right? She didn't smile back. She looked at Harlan instead. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Zephyrine took a slow breath, like she was pulling the trigger on something she'd rehearsed 100 times. The father is Harlan. We're in love. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And we want to be together, for the baby. The room tilted. The smell of catfish turned sour in my throat. My ears filled with a high, ringing quiet. I stared at my husband of 27 years, the man who used to pray over my tired feet after 12-hour shifts, the man who promised me, in sickness and in health, till death. He finally looked up. His eyes were wet, but there was something else in them, relief. Like a man who'd been carrying a secret too long and was glad to set it down. Eulalia, I'm sorry, he whispered. It just happened. Just happened. 4 words that tore my whole world in half. Zephyrine kept talking, her voice sweet as stolen honey. We didn't want you to find out like this, but it's time to be honest. The baby needs both parents. You've had Harlan all these years. Maybe it's my turn now. Your turn. I felt every year of my 49 on my skin in that moment. Every double shift, every bill I paid when money was short. Every lonely night I waited up for him to come home safe. Every dream I put on hold so they could have easier lives. I set my napkin down slow, the way you do when you don't want anyone to see your hands shake. Then I looked at my sister, my baby sister I rocked to sleep when storms scared her, whose college books I paid for when Mama's Social Security wasn't enough, and I asked the only question that mattered. How long? Zephyrines' fingers tightened over her belly. 5 months, she said. It started right after Christmas. 5 months. While I was working New Year's Eve so somebody else's child could live. While I was sending her money for rent. While I was sleeping beside a man who was touching my sister under my own roof. The pain came in waves. First disbelief, then a grief so deep it felt like drowning. Then something colder started rising up through the hurt, something clear and sharp and ancient. I stood up from that table. My chair scraped loud across the wood floor. Harlan flinched like I'd slapped him. Zephyrine watched me with wide eyes, waiting for the tears, the screaming, the begging. But I didn't give them that. I walked calm to the hallway closet, pulled out the fireproof box I kept on the top shelf, the one nobody ever touched because they said, "That's Eulalia's important papers, leave it be." I carried it back to the table, set it down between the cornbread and the greens, and opened it slow. Inside was a single manila folder, thick and heavy. Zephyrine frowned. "What is that?" I didn't answer her yet. I looked at Harlan. "Do you remember the day we signed the mortgage on this house?" I asked him, voice steady as Sunday morning. He nodded, confused. "You remember what the lawyer made us sign first?" His face changed. The color drained right out of it. Because 25 years ago, when I was 34 and Harlan 36, we sat in a little office downtown. I was already the breadwinner. He was proud, but he knew the truth. Without my income, my credit, my overtime, we'd never own a home. The bank required it. My attorney, Miss Valerie Jones, sharp as a switch, drew it up clean and simple. A post-nuptial agreement. Separate property, complete separation of assets. Everything I brought in before and after marriage stayed mine alone. Everything he brought in stayed his. No alimony, no claim. Signed, notarized, filed with Shelby County the same week we closed on this house. I opened the folder and laid the agreement on the table like I was serving dessert. Zephyrine stared at the pages like they were written in tongues. Harlan knew exactly what they said. He had laughed back then, said, "Baby, we ain't never getting divorced, so what's the harm?" He signed quick, eager to get to the closing, eager to move into the house my money qualified us for. I let the silence stretch. Then I spoke, soft and clear. "This house is in my name only. The deed says it, the mortgage says it, this agreement says it. The savings account with $187,000 in it, mine alone. The retirement from 30 years of nursing, mine. Your little checking account with the $2,300 overdraft, that's yours, Harlan." I turned to Zephyrine. "And you, little sister, you are carrying a child by a man who owns nothing but the clothes on his back and a 2009 Silverado with 180,000 miles on it." Harlan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The candle flames trembled like they felt the chill that had just walked into the room. Zephyrine reached for the pages with shaking fingers, flipping them too fast, eyes darting for any escape clause. There wasn't one. Miss Valerie had written it ironclad, and I had kept it sacred. I watched my sister's face go through every stage of dying hope. First confusion, then panic, then the slow, sick realization that the golden future she'd been tasting for months had just turned to ash on her tongue. She finally looked up at me, tears already shining. "Eulalia, you can't be serious. You're my sister." I let the quiet answer for a second. The clock on the wall ticked loud enough to sound like a hammer. Then I leaned in, close enough that she could smell the hurt on my breath. "Serious?" My voice was low, steady, but it shook with something ancient and righteous. "I carried you on my hip when Mama worked doubles. I paid for your braces when Daddy's lungs gave out. I sent you money every month you cried, 'I'm short, sis, just this once.' And the whole time you were laying up in my bed with my husband, you were counting my money in your head, weren't you?" Zeph's hand flew to her mouth like she could shove the truth back down her throat. Harlan tried to stand. "Eulalia, baby, don't you dare baby me." The words cracked like a whip. He sat back down hard. I turned the pages of the agreement so they both could see the signatures, his bold and careless scrawl next to my careful, deliberate one. "You signed this the day we bought this house. You laughed, said only rich folks needed papers between them and love." I let out a small, bitter laugh that tasted like rust. Turns out this poor black woman needed it more than anybody. Zephyrine tears spilled now, big and messy. "But the baby! This child is blood, Eulalia, your blood and his." I looked at her belly, round and real under that cheap yellow dress, and something inside me broke clean in two. I felt the loss of the niece or nephew I would never hold without tasting betrayal. I felt the sting of every dream Harlan and I had buried because children never came for us. And I felt the cold, clean fury of a woman who had finally been pushed 1 inch too far. "That child," I said, voice trembling now, "will know hunger before it ever knows my arms, because the man you chose owns nothing but regret and a rusted toolbox. And the house you thought you were moving into? The deed has only one name on it: mine." Harlan's face crumpled. He dropped his head into his hands, shoulders shaking. For the first time in 27 years, my husband cried in front of me. Not when his daddy died, not when we buried Mama, but now that he understood he was walking out with exactly what he walked in with: nothing. Zephyrine tried one last time, voice small and cracked. We thought you'd understand. You always fix things. You always had more than enough." I stood up slow, smoothing my apron like I was still the calm head nurse everybody leaned on. Then I looked down at them, my husband and my sister, shriveled and small at my table. "I did always have more than enough," I said. "More love, more loyalty, more sacrifice. And you mistook it for weakness." I walked to the front door and opened it wide. The humid night air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain about to fall. "Harlan, you have 30 minutes to pack whatever fits in that truck you still owe 4 years on. Zephyrine, you can call Mama to come get you, or you can walk. I don't much care." Zeph stood up, belly leading the way, mascara streaking her cheeks. "You're throwing me out? Pregnant?" "I'm protecting what's mine," I answered. "Same way I always have. Only this time, I'm protecting it from you." Harlan stumbled to his feet, reaching for me like he used to when we were young and the world was soft. "Eulalia, please." I stepped back. The space between us felt like the Grand Canyon. "Don't touch me with the same hands that touched her. Don't speak my name with the same mouth that lied to my face every morning for 5 months." I looked him dead in the eyes. "You wanted a new family? Go build it. But you will build it somewhere else." Thunder rolled low in the distance, like God himself was backing me up. Zephyrine grabbed her purse, dramatic the way she always was when she didn't get her way. "You're heartless," she spat. I closed the distance between us until we were eye to eye. "No, baby girl, I'm awake." Then I stepped aside and pointed into the dark. "Time's ticking." They walked out together, my husband and my sister, into the coming storm, Harlan carrying one sad duffel bag, Zeph clutching her belly like it could shield her from what was coming. I shut the door, locked it, leaned my back against it, and finally let the tears fall. But even through the tears, something fierce and new was rising in my chest, something that felt a lot like freedom. I stood there against that locked door longer than I care to admit. Rain started lashing the windows like it was trying to get in and wash the sin out of my house. Every sob I let out tasted like 27 years of swallowed hurt. Then the nurse in me took over. You don't survive decades in the ER letting yourself bleed out on the floor. You stop the hemorrhage. You apply pressure. You save the patient, even when the patient is you. I wiped my face with the hem of my apron, walked back to that dining room, and started cleaning up what was left of my marriage. I took their plates, still half full of my food, and scraped every bite into the trash. I blew out the candles one by one. I wrapped the leftover cornbread in foil because Eulalia Thorne does not waste good cornbread, even on the worst night of her life. Then I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and did what needed doing. First call was to Miss Valerie Jones, retired now, but she answered on the second ring like she'd been waiting on the Lord to put me through. When I told her what happened, she didn't waste time on pity. Post-nup is still tighter than a banker's vault, sugar. You want me to file Monday morning? Yes, ma'am. Fault-based. Adultery. I want it ugly and I want it fast. Consider it done. Second call was to my cousin Darnell. He owns a locksmith company. Baby, I need every lock in my house changed tonight. He was in my driveway in 23 minutes, rain soaking his shirt, no questions asked. Third call was to St. Jude's HR. I put in for 2 weeks of bereavement leave, because that's what this was, a death. While Darnell worked, I went room by room like a woman taking inventory of her own life. I boxed Harlan's clothes, his dusty high school trophies, his greasy work boots. I left the boxes on the carport with a note in my calmest handwriting. Property of Harlan Thorne. Remove by noon tomorrow or it goes to Goodwill. I took our wedding picture off the wall, the one from 1998 where we looked young and hopeful, and I turned it face down in a drawer. I did not break it. Some things you don't give them the satisfaction of seeing shatter. By midnight, the house was quiet except for the rain and the new click of brand new deadbolts. I poured myself a small glass of bourbon, Mama's emergency bottle from the top shelf, and sat on the porch swing where Harlan used to hold me. I let the storm cry for me. The next morning, Memphis woke up golden and clean, like the city herself had taken a bath. I put on my good Navy suit, the one I wear when I have to tell a family their child didn't make it. I drove downtown to the Shelby County clerk and filed the divorce papers myself. The clerk, Miss Tanya, read the cause and looked up at me with soft eyes. Miss Eulalia, I'm so sorry. I just nodded. Some hurts don't need words. Word travels faster than church fans in July. By Sunday, the whole congregation knew. Sister Gladys hugged me so hard my ribs creaked. Deacon Harris slipped me an envelope with $400 inside. For whatever you need, baby. Mother Willie prayed over me right there in the aisle, loud enough for God and everybody to hear. And the phone calls started. Mama, Zeph's staying here till the baby comes. What was I supposed to do, turn my own child away? I told her, calm as iced tea, Mama, you raised us both. You know which one of us lost her mind and which one just found hers. Then Zephyrine herself, voice thick with, You're really gonna leave your own blood out here struggling? This baby gon' need things. I said, that baby gon' need a daddy with a job and a mama with a conscience. Good luck finding either one. Harlan tried next, left a voicemail at 2 a.m. Eulalia, I made a mistake. I love you. We can fix this. I saved it. Evidence has a way of coming in handy. 2 weeks later, Miss Valerie called. They lawyered up, some cut-rate fellow out of Jackson. He tried to claim the postnup was signed under duress. Judge laughed him out of the courtroom. Temporary orders are in. Harlan gets nothing but his personal belongings and his own debt. House is yours, free and clear. Hearing for final decree is set for October. I hung up and felt the first real breath I'd taken since that dinner. But the best part, the part that still feels like sweet revenge wrapped in justice, was watching the consequences roll in slow and merciless. Harlan moved into a one-bedroom efficiency off Lamar Avenue. $650 a month and the hot water barely works. His credit was shot. Couldn't finance a bicycle, let alone an apartment with a nursery. Zephyrine gave birth in November to a little boy they named Malik. Pretty name. Shame about the parents. Child support got garnished straight from Harlan's check. 20% off the top before he even saw a dime. Between that and the back support the judge tacked on, my ex-husband was bringing home less than he made in 1999. Mama's house got crowded quick. 4 adults, 1 baby, 1 bathroom, and a lifetime of resentment. I heard the fights through the family grapevine. Zeph screaming that Harlan promised her a better life. Harlan shouting back that she seduced him into this mess. I didn't smile about a child suffering. Never that. But I didn't lose one night's sleep over the adults who made their bed and now had to lay in it. Crying, broke, and stuck. And me? I took the bereavement money the church gave me, plus my 2 weeks' pay, and I bought myself something I'd never had the courage to buy before. A plane ticket to Paris. One way. Open return. I walked the Seine at sunrise. I ate croissants still warm from the oven. I sat in Notre Dame and lit a candle. Not for them, but for the woman I was becoming. When I came home 6 weeks later, I was lighter in every way that mattered. October came. The judge signed the final decree. Harlan Thorne left my life with exactly what he brought into it, nothing but his name and his shame. I changed the locks again, just because I could. And on the first quiet night in my house that was finally truly mine, I cooked for one. Fried catfish, collard greens, cornbread golden and perfect. I set the table pretty, lit a candle, and I ate every bite. Because some wars are won in silence. Some victories taste like cornbread and freedom.